up, guys? This week we saw Han Solo. Oh, it's just Solo, Star Wars. What's up, guys? Gavin McGregor here, coming back at you. This week we saw Solo, a Star Wars story, directed by Ron Howard.
It stars Alden Ehrenreich, Woody Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover, Thandie Newton, and Paul Bettany. This movie explored Han Solo's early life before the original trilogy, so we get to see how he met Chewie and what went on before the whole original thing with Luke Skywalker went down and how he got to that point.
Alright, so let's talk about our expectations going into this movie. I wasn't really super excited for it because I'm really one that prefers the really main stories, the numbered Star Wars movies, but I did love Rogue One, so I was hoping that they could really make something special with this kind of spin-off, this prequel, if you will, this filler movie. I was surprised at how well it worked out.
Yeah, I wasn't too excited for this movie either. It looked really, just from the trailers, it looked like a grim movie just because, like, Han Solo and Chewie supposed to be like fun adventures. Just from the trailers, the direction looked really grim, and also they had a lot of pre-production issues, obviously with the directors stepping down and Ron Howard coming in at the last minute. And in the end, no one even asked for this movie in the first place, so that's another reason I wasn't too excited. And I don't know, I just didn't think Han Solo needed a backstory really.
Alright, so this movie I feel succeeded on a ton of different levels. The special effects were incredible because it's Star Wars. They got a huge budget and it's always going to be. The writing was surprisingly fitting for what it needed to be to tell this story, and it was a really interesting blend of serious backstory, but also you could see how Han's character really came through in all of these different scenarios and all of these different settings, and that's what it was supposed to be. It's a character piece, and I think it did that job really well. Another thing is that the director and the producers, everyone who was involved in the set production.
McGregor?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the director, the producers, all of the set designers, the costume designers, I feel something that I really realized with this movie is that with every single Star Wars movie, they really take a lot of time to make sure that everyone is different and distinct and unique but recognizable at the same time. So there's a lot of way that the vehicles are designed in this, the characters, the enemies, the costumes. It gives you a new sense of where you are in the Star Wars universe, and that's one of the beautiful things about Star Wars is it changes every time, and you really get a new experience with every movie. So that I absolutely loved with Solo.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like this movie was better than it had any right to be. It really did a good job of laying out the backstory for Han Solo. You really got to see. It was fun to see how he met Chewbacca and other stuff like that, and how he got the Millennium Falcon. That was all really fun to watch. And it was also surprisingly directed really well. I love the action scenes in this movie. The action scenes were really awesome. They were directed with a lot of energy, and they were really fun to watch. Also in this movie, there's a lot of new characters introduced to progress Han's story, his early backstory, and all these characters were really cool. I liked all of them. And in the end, it was a fun movie that had a lot of good characters and a lot of great action scenes. Okay, so let's talk about Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. This kid's been getting a lot of hate for taking on such an iconic role, and if he can actually do well. And it's easy to pinpoint like all the flaws he had, but I thought overall he did a great job for what he had in front of him, and he really brought his A game to try and respect that character as much as possible, even though it is such an iconic role and he can't do it perfectly. But I thought he did good for what he had to do.
Yeah, I feel like he really did a good job of looking back at the previous I mean earlier made films, the original trilogy, and I feel like he took his own spin on the character of Han Solo, but at the same time you could still see some mannerisms and characteristics that were visible when Harrison Ford played them. So I feel like he really did his best to do it justice and add his own style while still respecting the original material.
Mm-hmm. And also, as you probably know, everyone was excited for Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian, and he was good as well.
Yeah, he worked pretty well.
Yeah, the hype was real for that one. And Emilia Clarke, I liked her. Even though I didn't like her character as much, I thought her acting was fine. Mm-hmm. And then they also got a new guy for Chewbacca, and he was good too, obviously. And
you just wear a furry suit and run around. And
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
So, and then the villain was pretty good. Paul Bettany, as he plays Vision in the Avengers movies, he was really good as well. So, surprisingly, the thing in this movie that impressed me the most was the action scenes. Ron Howard, he did an awesome job directing the action scenes in this movie. And I know Phil Lord and Christopher Miller stepped down, so I don't know how much they shot the action scenes or how much it was Ron Howard. But I'm going to assume Ron Howard directed most of these since they said he shot 80% of the film. He reshot 80% of the film. So I'm just going to assume it was him. But whoever did it did a great job of directing these scenes. The spaceship scenes were awesome. The hand-to-hand fight scenes were awesome. There's an awesome scene in the beginning involving Chewie and Han Solo when they first meet in a mud pit. That was awesome. And like I said, all the chase scenes with the ships and the spaceships are awesome. There's one scene where they're in like a storm with like a monster in the back. All these things were just directed beautifully, and I really enjoyed watching it. It was really impressive to me, and I didn't expect it from from Ron Howard, because he's not really known for his action as much, but he did a great job with this.
Alright, one thing we gotta talk about in any Star Wars film is the music, the score, the composition, the soundtrack. One thing that John Williams is known for, obviously, that he can just pull off masterfully, is taking a central idea, a central sound, a set of instruments, taking a theme from it that we've seen time and time again throughout the Star Wars universe, and building these different facets of characters within that theme. So we can still tell very much this is a definite John Williams, Star Wars-esque composition, and it really pulls you back into that world very effectively, which is one of the great tools that is in the toolbox of this whole production. He then takes those central ideas and goes off on these different tangents with all the different characters. So there's different pirates that are involved in this movie. There are different thieves that get involved. Each one of these factions has their own sound style and their own identity that's brought forth through the music. And with Han, it's a sound of more rebellion, more freedom, all these exciting things going on. With these other factions, it's more terror, fear, power, and it's really an effective way of storytelling when you don't even have to use any dialogue or any action at all. It's incredible.
So I'm sure a lot of Star Wars fans are worried that this movie was gonna probably maybe disrespect Han Solo or his character, or compromise his character, and I don't think this movie did that. I think this movie did a great job of exploring his backstory, and the movie really respected the character of Han Solo and Chewbacca and their stories together, and I thought, like I said before, the movie just did a really good job of setting up their backstory and respecting their characters. And a lot of Han Solo and Chewbacca didn't do anything uncharacteristic from the previous trilogies, I don't think. I thought it was all very accurate, and I thought the producers and the directors and the writers all did a good job of trying to respect and make it consistent with the previous trilogies, and I thought the movie did that well.
Alright, so let's wrap it up with talking about some of the things we didn't love so much about this movie.
So first of all, Emilia Clarke's character, as I said, I liked her acting, but her character was really confusing. Like, it starts off with them, like, being in a relationship, kind of. I'm trying not to spoil as much, but it's her and Han kind of in a relationship, and they explore that, but then she kind of gets thrown back in, and her motives are really confusing, and I was struggling to, like, find out, like, why she was doing what she was doing, what her true intentions were, or what her emotions were towards Han Solo. It was just really confusing for me.
Yeah, and you're shown kind of throughout the film you see, it's like they try to present the progression that she has as a character, but there's these massive gaps in between what's going on. So you kind of just see these pinpoints of her along her own personal timeline without understanding any of the motives or any of the growth that happens between them. So there were points in this movie where we saw her, and then we saw her 45 minutes later, and it was almost to the point where she wasn't even the same character, because even though it was the same physical person, you had no idea what her motives were or what was going on or what her backstory was anymore, and it kind of made it a little bit, it was a little bit cut up in her presentation.
Yeah, and it was like at the end of the movie I was like, okay, here's what she really wants, but then she does something else at the very end where it confused me even more. I was like, what do you want?
But, I mean, at the same time, that's kind of her character's role in this film, so I feel like this movie left a lot of explanation to be told, and I'm afraid that some of that is going to just be left to, okay, we'll go read a book or go read a Google article or go look it up. I hope that somehow they find a way to expand on it more, because the way this movie ends and the way that the original trilogy picks up, there's a massive amount of time there that's just completely unexplored, and I feel almost like there needs to be another movie following this one to explain a lot of it, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. Maybe it'll tie in with further spin-offs if they're going to make a Boba Fett movie, or if they're going to make movies about this time period. I hope it's expanded upon a little bit more.
Also, a few little things that kind of bothered me. It won't really affect the movie as a whole, but you could tell, like, there was another cut of this movie before Ron Howard came on, and there's a few editing scenes, but like scenes between scenes where it was like that was kind of choppy. Like, the editing was a little bad, because you can tell, like, there were scenes in there and then they cut it out, and then there's like music playing again. It's just some of it just didn't flow well. It was really unnatural. But that's just a few little scenes. It didn't really affect the movie as a whole. And also, at the end of the movie, it was a little dry. This movie is like 2 hours and 15 minutes. I thought there was like a big chase scene, and then I thought that was the finale, but then it added on a little more, and it was a little dragged out at the end.
So here's our final verdict on the movie. Alright, so I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10, because I feel like it succeeded when I was not expecting it to at all. It did a lot of things right, a few things wrong, but the things that were right really overshadowed those few problems.
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a good summer movie. A really solid Han Solo movie, surprisingly. It really respects his character. And in the end, it's a great like heist/bank robbery movie-ish in sci-fi. And has a lot of cool characters, great action scenes. It also has some good comedy thrown in there, some good dramatic scenes. Overall, it was a solid summer movie. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay, so that gives us a combined score of 7.5 out of 10. One thing we really thought about this movie is that, especially if you have a Star Wars collection, we would justify buying this to add because it really is a critical part of the character's story within it.
It's worth a watch and it's definitely worth a buy if you're into that sort of stuff, as we are.
Yep. Alright, so let us know what you thought in the comments down below. We'll see you guys next time.